Ladies and gentlemen, welcome your faces back. We have a brand new series here for you. My name is 26B. I'm your regular host for the ADA events that we host, whether that be the Apex Street Tour or the Apex Drift Championship. And I'm here today and for the future to bring you a series of videos that's actually going to help you when it comes to learning to drift. GT7 can be a little bit of an animal with it on occasion. You've got a lot less steering lock than some other games, and there's some really important things that nobody talks about. And to be honest, the one thing we've noticed as well is there's no real comprehensive guide to drifting in GT7 at all, or how to tune a car correctly, or how your wheels should be set up, or how your controller should be set up, or anything along the lines. So this realistically um, could be a pretty long series of videos. They're going to come out once a week. So this week is settings. We're going to be concentrating purely on settings alone here, in comparison to some videos I've watched. Like there's tuning guides and stuff like that on YouTube where you can see, this does this and this does this for racing, but there isn't the same for drifting. At least not from what I've found. So between myself and a few other members of the community, we're going to be collaborating together to bring you a full, comprehensive, complete guide on everything you need to know when it comes to tuning, drifting in general, drifting etiquette in general in lobbies can be pretty diabolical sometimes. That's another big issue, which we'll discuss in another video alone. But there'll be potentially even a livery editor, sort of everything you need to know about the livery editor sort of deal. Like just everything that generally relates to drifting in any context, we will cover. And if there's anything you particularly want to have covered, please put it in the comments, because if you don't let us know what you're looking for, then we can't really put out the best footage for you. This is part one of God knows how many, so I'm going to get into it really quickly. No other reason. This is going to be where the first actual drifting part of the equation is actually going to be hosted. Like I'm actually going to be on this track, particularly teaching you the basics of drifting and stuff like that when it comes to GT7. But first things first. And now this, I'm going to go over controller from what I understand. This comes from someone with about 5,000 hours on GT in general. On GT7 specifically. I've got probably 4,900 hours on 4,900 hours on wheel, maybe 100 hours on controller. But yeah, I mean, even still. First thing you're going to do, and this is something that big time comes into actually when you set up your lobby in multiplayer as well, is make sure that you have tire and fuel on one, and real grip reduction, and real slipstream. This gives you the best and most accurate feedback out of the car, generally. Some people don't like it, some people do. It's what we have found out of the people that use it versus the people that don't. Everybody comes onto this and they all find that they enjoy this more, and it's because it's more consistent in the force feedback over time, which is always a big plus, especially if you're on wheel. It's a significant difference. So a couple of controller guys have also said it feels significantly better. There's a little bit more grip in the car. There's a little bit more bite in general from everything that the car does. Some people might say they don't like that, but yeah. We recommend, right? And this is an absolute recommendation, is to have ABS off and learn how to drift with no ABS. But if you're drifted on comfort hards, it's to drift on stock brakes. That way you don't lock them up, and probably if you're new to no ABS, put your brake balance further to the back. That way they won't lock up the front so easily. Just a notable. But we can get into that and explain the differences and that later on at a different time. When we go into tuning and stuff like that, we'll discuss that more in detail. Manual transmission is a must. It's an absolute must. Zero traction control, absolute must. Auto drive, off. Just, you don't want the game driving for you. Driving line assistance. Some people have like the corner indicators on. Never understood it personally, but some people do, so try it, see if you like it. Braking indicator off, because you don't want the game telling you where you need to brake when you're in drifting, because drifting doesn't apply to racing, so it's completely different. Braking area, completely turn off. Like, it will just have a big red box on your screen, and nobody wants that. Replace car after leaving track. You want this off, because if you fall off track, you want to be able to learn from your mistakes and not have to be instantly reset. Active stability management. This is stability control, basically. You want that off. Counter steering assistance. Absolutely turn it off. I understand that some people probably use this, but you will only get you can only get so good if you are being assisted. You want to be not assisted as much as possible. Non-assisted as much as possible. You want to be able to learn raw. Then we're going to get into the controller settings now. I'm going to get into this quickly, and relatively briefly, but it's very simple. If you have it on less than 5 on controller steering sensitivity, the game will actually smoothen your inputs out. So it will predict that your movement, it will create your movements to be smoother, generally slower. So I know a lot of controller guys run -2, because on the scale it goes from -2 to 10. For anybody on wheel, I always recommend 5 because it's a 1-to-1 with what's happening with the car. I know that some T300 users have said that they prefer it on 10 because it gives them a more direct feeling. That's a T300 thing, I think, specifically. I ran -2 for the longest time. Once I got a direct drive, I went to 5, and it was the best thing I ever realized. 10, in actual fact, will predict your inputs and try and put it ahead of what you're doing. So the game will try and do ahead of what you're doing on 10, behind what you're doing on -2. These, to be honest with you, is personal preference. I would turn them off, realistically, because then you've got more control of the triggers if you're using triggers for accelerator and brake. And then this is the other. This is a personal preference thing, but this is what me and probably about 10, 15 others have all come to the same conclusion, whether it be direct drive, G29s, T300s, whatever. Start at the maximum. If you're on a G29 or a T150, you're probably running 1010. Let's be really honest. If you're on a T300, you're probably a couple clicks down, right? And only because you can't tune the T300 directly on the wheel. Now, in my experience, and with a few other people's experience, if you're running a direct drive, put these both on 10 and tune your wheel down on the wheel directly, and that will generally give you a better force feedback sensation than if you was running 5 and 5 and you had your wheel cranked, because then the game is actually outputting all it wants to output out into the wheel. All it can output, right? I know that if you do this with a T300, because you can't actually adjust it in-game, like you can't actually adjust it on the wheel itself, I know that it can be a bit weird, so I think most people run sort of 7.5 on T300 is what I basically understand. I know some people run 1010 still, but I know that Dory Bambi, for example, who's our lead line judge for the season, I know he runs like 8.2 or something, 8.5 or 8.7 or something, I don't know. Somewhere in that range. But if you're on a controller, these don't matter, by the way, just to clarify. And the big thing is you want the game giving your wheel as much information as possible. And if you've got too much torque, right? This is road surface. This is bumps, right? So if you're getting a bump through the wheel, for example, say if you hit a curb, that bottom one is going to be the curb knock. Like, that's going to be how quick that reacts. Generally, from what I've experienced the most. And then if you go to max torque and run that lower, that just drops your whole wheel's general speed in general. So, like, the top one's very general, and the bottom one's a little bit more sensitivity based. And then for one final set of settings is dead zones. Now, a lot of people don't run clutch in this game, and I understand why, because generally in GT, the clutch has been terrible. But in recent months, they have fixed it a bunch. Especially GT7. GT7 has had some of the best clutch I've ever played with. So if you are looking at these settings, the one thing you'll notice, hang on, let me just fix this, because, there we go. No, don't bug. Basically, now, this is my preference, my pedal glitches like crazy, so I apologise. This is my preference for my pedals, because I have old G29 pedals and they break, and yeah, don't worry, it's a complicated thing. But you should have a 55% minimum on the clutch, or 60% minimum, depending on where you like your biting point, right? Your clutch dead zone is the biting point in your clutch. If you want a really tight biting point that reacts very quickly, but like, you feel nothing, and then it instantly comes on, run it even tighter. If you want it to have a little bit of leeway, when you just start to lift your foot, you can feel it just kick in. Like, I would recommend a 20% leeway. Some people run 15, some people run 10, some people run 25. I run 20. 20 is generally what I found is to be best. And this fixes the misshifts, the random falling into neutral, and on top of that, when you actually clutch kick, it doesn't have such a dramatic effect on the car as well. In regards to accelerate and brake, you want them as close to 0 and 100 as possible, because you want as much pedal travel as possible. The only thing is my pedals bug at the top of the ranges sometimes, so I have to drop mine down a little bit. We are gonna have a pretty long list of videos to do with the coming out that come out after this. We're gonna do a basics car build, and that's gonna be the next video. So we're gonna use the information that we use this time, and we're gonna build. We have a car that's already built, which is this S14 that's been driving around the track that you've seen a couple of times. This car will be next week's video specifically, and it's going to be teaching the basics of drifting on a wheel, and using the clutch and a few other bits and bobs. It's going to be a bit of a longer video, that one, but I will try to trim it back where I can. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it from me. We'll see you next week for part 2 of this God knows how long series, and yeah, have a good one. See you later.